Hello and welcome to Khagazstan. This is the first in a series, little mini series I'll be doing about my fake Pokemon region called Khagazstan. Now you may be wondering, why is it called Khagazstan and not something like the Khagaz region? After all, Pokemon here are Khagaz forms, or a Khagaz regional evolution. And the reason is that this is not taking place in the same nation that other Pokemon games are. While later games haven't included the national dex, the fact that they're called regions, and I'll still refer to mine as a region, but know that it's not a region within some nation, as the other regions are implied to be. It's its own nation, because there's no real need for these Pokemon games to take place within the same nation, and it kind of cheapens the stakes when something it's going to destroy the whole region. Like, you'd react more viscerally to something that's going to destroy a whole country in the real world versus, oh, this is going to destroy one state. And I think for that reason that the game should take place in different nations. It kind of removes the homogenization of the culture that happens when we go, oh yeah, there's Unova and that's based off the U.S. But it's all really part of the same country. And I think that it can be very empowering to different places when a region based off of them is its own nation and has its own full independence in that way. So Khagazstan is based off of Central Asia. It is based off of, if you couldn't tell from the map, I misplaced it, but it is based off of Iran, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, part of Russia, like the southernmost sort of Siberia part, Mongolia, some parts of China, but limited, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan. I think that's all of them. Iran, I don't know if I said, but it's based off of those countries that where effectively, we'll see with the starters in a moment, but the region is very heavily related to the different powers that have had control of that region. And there's a lot of powers that historically it's been, oh, this, like, more or less, it's the Eastern Hunnic Empire. But I mean, it's the Mongolian Empire minus China. It's sort of just this focal point of the globe. And we'll get into those starters now. These are the first partner Pokemon: Fleagle, Tumblr, and Backy. Now, apologies, Tumblr is on a different piece of paper that I had cut out. Most of the pictures are cut out because I've had them up on my wall, but these two I did earlier. And apologies for the spotty coloring on this. It would be consistently this light blue. It also looks very desaturated right now. But we'll start with Fleagle. Fleagle, its name coming from Flagellum Dei, meaning Scourge of the Gods, and that was Attila the Hun's nickname. Fleagle is based off of the Hunnic Empire. This is from their crown. And it is a fire type. It will eventually become its evolution, Zulfimar's, coming from Zulfikar and the Sword of Mars, two swords of importance to the region, like the physical real Earth region. Those are both swords. The Sword of Mars owned by Attila the Hun. Zulfikar, I believe, owned by Muhammad in Islam. And there's two consistent themes across all the starter families. So the fire starters are planar geometry, grass starters spherical geometry, these ones, the water starters, hyperbolic geometry. So, you know, it's got this flat wing, it's planar geometry. It's got a Tumblr is a Russian thistle, it's a tumbleweed. It's got a spherical collar thing. And then these humps in the saddle combine to create a saddle point in the center, which is a key feature of hyperbolic geometry. But they're also each a major empire in the region, the Hunnic, the Soviet Union, and the Mongol Empire, and then a stress response. So fight, flight in the classical sense of like the noun form of flee, and freeze. That's a stop sign. I forgot to color it in. But then within each, and they're tumbleweed wolf, and just tumble in general, and Bactrian Taki. Bactrian being 200 camels that are native to this region. Taki is the only wild horse breed that's common in Mongolia. This also includes the Siberian musk deer, which has the fangs, Mongolian reindeer, rain, that was more of a pun, And then also, later on, I don't have a drawing of its final evolution, but there's many antelope-like things in the area. Arg, there's one that starts with Arg, I forget its name. Ones that have Pokemon based off them that I can remember the name of. Markor, Mouflons, there's one that's Kudu, that's what I was thinking of. But it's based off of a lot of those. It's got the kind of wave tail. And within the Fleagle line, we have Speak No Evil. You can't tell its beak is held shut by metal. Hear No Evil. The middle evolution will have some way that it can't hear. And then See No Evil goes through. We go from Zilfamars into Aquila. Its name coming from Attila the Hun. And there's an extra bit of paper in here that I didn't know was there still from when it was cut out. Attila the Hun, Aquila being the Latin name and also Spanish word coincidentally for eagle. And then Tumble evolves into Thitsar. I don't know how we pronounce it. I think it's just Thisar, is most accurate in English. But Thistle, Tsar, evolving finally into Cathistle. Catherine the Great, Russian thistle. It's got a Russian thistle flower necklace. This would be more tumbleweed like that. I just drew it poorly. And then a sort of classic royal coat. And you can see this sphere here on the spherical geometry on Aquila, the more prominent flat wings. And it is a Mongolian hunting eagle, hence this. And Fire Steel, Cathis was a grass ice. This is a like metal piece bolted onto the beak. But Mongolian eagles are trained to hunt, golden eagles, and they wear a cover over their eyes. And then they are trained so that when that cover's taken off, they know it's time to attack. But Aquila is always attacking. And I don't have a picture of the evolutions for Baki, but sorry, Tumblewolf is they're each saying in reverse of See No Evil, Hear No Evil, Speak No Evil. That one has less of a defined order. Baki's has no order, so I just picked one, but Shake, Rattle, and Roll. So it's a tumbleweed that rolls. Thisar will have a sort of rattlesnake-esque tail, because it rattles, and Shake, as in shiver from the cold, for Cathistle. Each of them gains their secondary typing at the middle stage. Baki evolves to become a water ground. Khagazstan, going from igneous to sedimentary rock as it gets sort of Mudsdale style mud around the legs. Probably the reindeer antlers expanding as well from the mud, humps being built up out of the mud. And then finally into Genkor, Genghis, and Markor, I believe. I'm not sure what Khagazstan is besides Kagan, which is a term present in a couple Pokemon names in this region, meaning emperor, similar to Khan as king. And Khagazstan is sedimentary, and then Genkor is metamorphic rock. And it just has more rippling patterns in the mud on it. So those are the first partner Pokemon. And continuing on in the Pokedex, we have the sort of, we'll call them early game bug regional bird and Pika clone. So those are common terms used by fans, meaning just some of the Pokemon are available early on. Pikachu clones are electric type rodent Pokemon, often described as being used to just generate money. Apparently they're named in Japanese always, which is obvious ones like Togedemaru, Pachirisu. I feel like it clearly not all of them, because we have Plusle and Minun, which are obviously not named in Japanese, so I didn't worry about that. But those pure electric, Gerbolt and Joltboa, they're just a Gerboa that jolts. Gerboa is just a small rodent creature. Then the bug, there's also no image for that, but that is Larvinx, Constrixt, and Corsuffer. So those are based off of silkworms. And Larvinx is sort of a grub that's being choked off by its silk strand, and that comes from larva, larynx, and Bombyx, which is the genus that silk moths are. Their scientific name is Bombyx mori. So that evolves into constrict, Bombyx, which finally evolves into Corsuffer, which is they're still a worm state, because silkworms aren't really meant to reach, they're meant to reach a cocoon and then just kind of, that's what matters. So the Corsuffer line, it just kind of is a pupa for the last two stages, but comes from corset and suffer, and then it's also being sort of strangulated by its silk, and like sort of representation of like beauty standards, of like it has to be thin to be a cute Pokemon, and the chasing that is what makes it not a cute Pokemon. Then our regional bird is Bustran, coming from bustard. This is a great bustard, and transgender, as this is the only Pokemon that changes genders. You'll notice this little circle on its back. This is the female form. That circle on its back gets pulled when it's hit by a contact move, and it switches to its male form. Gender fluid is perhaps a more accurate descriptor. Switches to its male form, which is basically just a male bustard, but the feathers explode out, dealing some damage. The male is flying steel. The female is flying fairy. And at any time it uses, in its male form, a move targeting itself, it sort of like cleans down the feathers, presses them back down, and reprimes itself. So that evolves with the same mechanic, but just more damage. I'd imagine the damage is calculated as just like a 40 base power attack or something like that, so that the damage scales without the ability having to change. But it evolves from Bustran into Blastran into Bombard, which then has a Mega Evolution. And in this region, the professor studies how Mega Evolution can occur without the use of the ultimate weapon, and finds that it is just any region in which death has occurred to that extent. So in this region, it's more Pokemon, more wholesome version of the Crusades that killed such a massive number of Pokemon and people that their remains did become Megastones in the same way they did in Kalos, in the same way they did in Hoenn due to the Weather Trio. So those are the regional bug, regional bird, and regional Pikachu clone. But those are the things that a typical player, you start in your hometown, you meet the professor, you get a starter Pokemon. Those are some of the first Pokemon they would encounter. However, our player in Pokemon Desert Divine and Pokemon Tundra Terrible does not go through that. They go through a much different experience, because they are not in as much of a rural town. They're in a port city. I have the name. I don't have it up in front of me, so I couldn't tell you what it is. But they come from a port city. Similar to most games, there's one town you go through before ever hitting a gym. But they wake up because they're being forced to flee their city, as, depending on the game version, either Team Heirloom in Desert Divine or Team Breakthrough in Tundra Terrible is basically bulldozing the town. It's called Asbosta Town, I believe, coming from Aspaboda, and the word for beginnings in, I want to say Kyrgyz. It's in the region portion of the region based off Khagazstan, I think, although it might be southern Kazakhstan. Don't quote me on those specifics. But I mixed them up. It would be Team... No, I had them right. Team Breakthrough in Tundra Terrible. And so when they awake in a hotel the next day, because they had to flee their home as it was getting torn down, the whole town is leveled. There's ancient ruins uncovered, and they are approached by a representative each. We'll go with the Desert Divine story first. They're approached by a representative from Team Heirloom, as well as the other team has a name. I don't recall it, but it's something related. Could be Team Festival. I think that's the name. Team Festive, maybe. Something like that. And Team Heirloom seems to use primarily Psychic and Ghost type Pokemon for now. And Team Festival, I said, uses Psychic and Fighting type Pokemon, it appears. So you have the option at this point to, you have to join one of the teams, as that is your only option. Your character is something of like, either you're going to take down Team Heirloom from the inside, or you're going to take down Team Heirloom by joining a rival, by joining Team Festive and helping to fight them. And Team Heirloom focuses on sort of connection to the past. And that there's a lot of current issues with the government. Team Team Heirloom focuses on, we need to fix these issues by connecting more to our heritage. However, Team Festive thinks instead of trying to fix these issues, we should just, kind of subtly do our best to work on fixing them. But the people just need to really be distracted while that's going on. The people still need to be happy. So they're very entertainment themed. Whereas if we're in Tundra Terrible, same story. However, it is Team Breakthrough who's saying we need to put more money into sciences, put more money into research, find something that can fix these issues with the government, with like just the way things are going. Like we need to just better, like look into how to better manage our money, how to better manage our resources. And then there is Team, I can't remember the name for the life of me of this other team. There's another team that uses primarily ground and rock types. Can't tell you the name. That'll be in a future part of the series. But they use a lot of ground and rock types. And you choose between them. And they are saying that the other team, we'll call them Team Dune. For now, Team Dune, their argument is that rather than distracting people, rather than, we just need to look into what we can do, look into our past for what they have done in the past, just trying to distract people, they think it's best to almost directly attack the government, give them a hard thing to deal with, and then see they can't deal with that. We need something new. And so you choose between them, and each of them has a starter option that they give you, and you don't, you can't choose, I'll get the Team Heirloom starter on the team, but play on Team Festive. So this, I thought, was a good departure from, with Khagazstan, I really wanted to depart from typical things about Pokemon that don't need to be part of every region. So yes, there can be yes, there are starters, but those are endangered species. Those can't be owned by civilians, whereas the things that I feel like are important to a Pokemon game, you need to have battles, you need to have this. I think I wanted to sort of bring it back to a more classic, like Gen 1 to 6 game in some ways like that. For instance, some HMs in some parts of the game are reintroduced. Like there's portions of the game where you have to get around by surfing on a Pokemon, but there's other things that are very different. For example, there's 4 starters, and picking a different starter significantly changes the story. For the rest of the story, you're on that team. And in fact, obviously game exclusive starters, very odd change. And this will be more evident later on in story discussions that I'll post. But the team you're on, choosing Team Heirloom or Team Breakthrough is effectively more like choosing hard mode. And similar to Alien Isolation, there might even be some blurb that says like you're in the start of the game before you open it, or there's some hint that's really the recommended story. In the way that, yes, you can name the player whatever you want in Gen 1, but the player is red. And, you know, they end up with a Pikachu, a Snorlax. Yeah, you could fight all the Snorlax, but the player's name is red and they get a Snorlax, and we see that in Gen 2, and you see them on Mount Silver. So sort of like that, I think the official story is you choose Heirloom or Breakthrough depending on the version. Probably, you know, the male and female characters, they're Temulin and Tamerlane. Tamerlane the male, Temulin the female. It's probably one on each. But, so, and not only did I want to sort of disrupt the starter system of you choose, you know, a fire, water, grass starter, your rival takes the other one. Your rival, to the extent you have them, is someone in the same team. So they have the same starter as you. And these starters are things that are very, very uncommon for starters. For example, I only have any drawn out forms for one of them. This is actually the final form of one. So on Team Festive, you would receive, if you choose that, you receive Naatga, Naatga, which evolves into Buryatka, which evolves into Khagatka. That's another instance of the Kagon in the name. So that comes from Kagon. There might be a double A even. Kagon, Yatkabo with two A's, and Nadam, Naadam. Buryat, or a Yatka Harp, sorry. Buryat Bow in the middle evolution. So all of these are using a Nautica Harp, that's the wooden part, as a Buryat Bow. And they have, in the final evolution, it probably has a signature move that can burn, paralyze, or poison. And it's, you know, to have its one eye open as an archer, it's got one eye asleep, half of it asleep. Sorry for holding it so close to the camera. But that is a very humanoid Pokemon, which obviously starters seem to always end up bipedal, but they're not humans. It's, especially in the base forms, this is an, like, you know, even if Meowscarada ends up looking like a person, it's a cat in the base form. It's just a cat, lynx, whatever. That one is still pretty humanoid in its base form. One of the other ones, the ground starter, is Hathor, and Hay, and then that evolves into Hadhay, which is just Hadhayosh and a kind of Hay. You just kind of remove the last syllable, which evolves into Hadfey, Hadhayosh, Hay, and Fey, Fey. Those ones, I'm not sure what would really differentiate them from a standard starter, but I suppose you could say the other three starter options can all Mega evolve, so having an imbalanced Mega in the starter trio, Charizard having two Megas does not count, but having that distinction, you could say, is kind of the odd one out there. And then, what was I? Oh, and then the final two for Team Heirloom, Hadfey is Ground, and then Ground Fairy. The Nodga line is Psychic Fighting all the way through. And then starting out Fire Normal and Psychic Normal, respectively, are Heritel, which is an oral tradition campfire, and Libra, Librah. That line, it goes Libra, Libribel, Libran. So those are different holy texts. That's just a holy text, basically, just like a book. And then it goes Heritel, Heritail, Heritold, and then they each have a Mega. But those are Objectmon. They're object-themed Pokemon, which a starter has never been. But I thought it'd be good to still have it so that it's like, this is a region where it could have been a normal game. You know, there is starters, and they are still the start of the Pokedex. And there's a professor's lab who has them, and it's next to some small town. But you're just not the person from there. And that gives you a different story. Because we never, in a Pokemon game, really that is a main series game. Obviously, there's spin-offs like Pokemon Ranger or, XD Gale of Darkness and Coliseum, where it's like, yeah, those are different, but we never really see a region that could have been a mainline game fully. Could have been you're someone from a small town, you get a starter, you take the gym challenge, you fight an evil team. We've never seen one of those, but not from that point of view. We never see Pokemon Platinum, but you're Cyrus, except in fan games. Obviously, this is one itself. But I thought rather than just going, you're this evil person, it's still you still have a starter, you still have a choice to some extent. But so the in-game reasoning is that either Festive / Dune offers you that Pokemon if you join. All of them, like your character basically makes up their mind, probably along with a friend. In an early version of the story that I've changed a lot since, I can't use that as the story anymore. The rival was someone named Bolad, so maybe there's still a Bolad, and Bolad decides this with you, that you're both going to be trainers to help get back. Like, if you want to get revenge on the team, you got to be trainers. And so, for whatever reason, you're doing the gym challenge, and to get a Pokemon, your only real option, they don't sell Pokeballs to people who don't have Pokemon, because you wouldn't be able to get your first. You need a Pokemon to send into battle to catch a wild one. So that's in Gen 3 why we see Wally has to have a Zigzagoon in order to catch the Ralts. He can't just go. He has Pokeballs. He can't just go and throw it at the Ralts. He needs something to defend himself because of how powerful Pokemon are. So you need to join a team, and you do that. Then in the next part, I'll go into some of the new Pokemon and the gyms, an Elite Four, and perhaps the champion, even.